Cleopatra is dead. Mark Antony is dead. But they left 4 children behind, and those children were now a problem for the most powerful man in the world. What Rome did to them is the part of the story almost no one tells. It is darker than any legend, and yet, one of them survived. Survived Rome, survived the men who murdered her family, and went on to take a revenge no Roman ever saw coming. This is the story of the children of the last pharaoh. There were 4 of them. The eldest, Caesarion, 17 years old, and not just anyone's son, the son of Julius Caesar himself, born to Cleopatra in the years of her power. And 3 more, fathered by Mark Antony. The twins, Alexander Helios, named for the sun, and Cleopatra Selene, named for the moon, and the youngest, Ptolemy Philadelphus, just 6 years old. Think about what these 4 children represented. The blood of Julius Caesar, the blood of Mark Antony, and the blood of a royal house that had ruled Egypt for 300 years. They were the single most dangerous bloodline alive. To Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, and now the master of the Roman world, they were not children at all. They were loose ends. And the most dangerous loose end of all was Caesarion, because his very existence threatened everything Octavian had built. Octavian's entire claim to power rested on one fact, that he was the only heir of the murdered Julius Caesar. But here was another, a living, breathing son, not adopted, but Caesar's actual blood. Cleopatra had made certain the world knew it. In a grand ceremony, she had crowned the boy King of Kings, declared him Caesar's one true and legitimate son. 2 heirs of Caesar could not exist in the same world. So as Alexandria fell and the Roman army closed in, Cleopatra made a final, desperate gamble for her son. She sent Caesarion south, toward the Red Sea coast, toward a waiting ship, a fortune in gold, and a route that could carry him as far as India, far beyond the reach of Rome. He never made it. Caesarion's own tutor betrayed him. The man was promised that if the boy returned, Octavian would let him keep Egypt's throne. It was a lie. And the tutor either believed it or was paid to. When the question reached Octavian, one of his advisors gave the answer, coldly twisting a famous line of Homer. "Too many Caesars is not a good thing." That was the death sentence. The 17-year-old, the last male of Cleopatra's line, the only other man on earth with Caesar's blood, was hunted down and quietly killed. No trial, no record of how, no tomb we have ever found. With Caesarion gone, Octavian's claim to be Caesar's only son was finally, permanently safe. That left the 3 youngest, and they were taken alive. Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, little Ptolemy. Days before, they had been royal children in the richest palace in the world. Now they were orphans, mother gone, father gone. Their 300-year kingdom dissolved into a Roman province overnight. Octavian did not leave them in Egypt. He had a use for them. They were placed aboard a ship and carried across the Mediterranean to the one city on earth that had spent a decade learning to fear and hate their mother, to Rome itself. The children of Cleopatra, delivered into the heart of the empire that had destroyed their family, not as guests, but as trophies. Because Octavian had won the world, and Rome demanded a spectacle. A Roman triumph was the ultimate victory parade. Captured kings, looted gold, and enemies displayed in chains before a screaming, celebrating crowd. And in Octavian's great triumph, among the treasures of conquered Egypt, walked the children of Cleopatra. Ahead of them was carried a golden image of their dead mother, reclining as in death, a serpent coiled at her arm, so that Rome could gloat over the queen even now that she was gone. And the children themselves, the ancient sources say, were loaded with chains of solid gold, so heavy that the smallest of them could barely walk under the weight. Picture it. A crowd of tens of thousands roaring with laughter. At three small orphans staggering under golden chains behind the corpse image of their mother. It was designed to be the final humiliation of Cleopatra's line. For one of those children, it would become the beginning of something no one expected. Because after the triumph came the twist no one saw coming. The children were not executed. They were not enslaved. They were handed to a new guardian, Octavia. And of all the people in Rome, Octavia had the most reason to want them gone. She was Mark Antony's Roman wife, the loyal, respected woman he had married and then abandoned in front of the whole world for Cleopatra. These children were living proof of her public humiliation. They were the offspring of her husband's mistress, the children of her brother's greatest enemy. She owed them nothing but contempt. Instead, Octavia took them into her own home and raised them as her own, alongside her children and Antony's other children, in one extraordinary household. She gave them tutors, status, and protection. In a story drenched in blood and revenge, it is the single act of pure grace. But not even Octavia's protection could save them all. The two boys, Alexander Helios, once called the Sun, and little Ptolemy Philadelphus, walk into Octavia's house in the historical record, and then they simply vanish. No marriages, no titles, no careers, no recorded deaths. The sons of Cleopatra disappear from history without a single trace. The most likely truth is the quiet one, that they died young, of one of the fevers that regularly swept through ancient Rome. But some have always wondered whether two boys with the blood of Caesar and Antony in their veins were ever truly allowed to grow into men. We will never know. Cleopatra's sons were erased so completely that even the manner of their ending is lost. And so of the 4 children of the last pharaoh, only one was left. Cleopatra Selene, the Moon. The daughter who carried her mother's name, and, as the world would learn, her mother's mind. She had survived the fall of Egypt. She had survived the chains and the jeering crowd. She had grown up inside the household of the very people who had destroyed her family, watching everything, forgetting nothing. She had endured what would have broken almost anyone. And Octavian, now calling himself Augustus, the first Roman emperor, was not finished with her. He had one last use for the final child of Cleopatra. He arranged a marriage. The groom was Juba, a North African prince whose own father had died fighting Rome. Like Selene, Juba had been raised in Rome, a captive turned scholar, one of the most learned men of his age, an author of dozens of books. A king, but a king without a kingdom. So Augustus gave the pair one. Mauretania, a vast realm on the far western edge of the empire, in what is now Algeria and Morocco. On the surface, it was exile, dressed up as a gift, the last of Cleopatra's blood, married off and sent to the edge of the map to be forgotten. But Cleopatra Selene refused to be forgotten. She became a true queen, not a figurehead, but a ruler. She and Juba built a magnificent new capital on the coast and named it Caesarea. They filled it with Greek and Egyptian art, a great library, harbors, and trade that reached across the whole Mediterranean. The captive child who had been dragged through Rome in golden chains now sat on a throne of her own. And she never, for one moment, forgot who she was. On her own royal coins, struck in her own name, Selene placed the symbols of Egypt, the crocodile of the Nile, the imagery of Isis, the memory of her mother's lost kingdom. A quiet, deliberate act of defiance, an ocean away from Rome. She titled herself in Greek Queen Cleopatra, keeping her mother's name alive in royal letters. And she named her son Ptolemy, reviving the name of a 300-year-old dynasty in a brand new land. That son, Ptolemy of Mauretania, would inherit the throne and rule for decades more. The great-grandson of Cleopatra, a Ptolemy still reigning, generations after Egypt itself had fallen. The daughter Rome had paraded as a prisoner had quietly rebuilt her mother's dynasty on the other side of the sea. But Rome, in the end, could not stand even that. Decades later, Selene's son Ptolemy, charming, fabulously wealthy, beloved by his people, was summoned to Rome by the Emperor Caligula. And there, the last king of Cleopatra's line was murdered. Some say simply because Caligula envied his wealth and his purple cloak. It was the same death Rome always reserved for this family. Killed for being too rich, too royal, too dangerous to leave alive. And yet, think about what it took. They killed Cleopatra. They killed Caesarion. Her sons vanished. And it still took Rome 70 more years, and another murdered king, to finally end her line. You can destroy a queen. You cannot always destroy what she passes on. The most powerful empire on earth set out to erase one family from history, and it took them 3 generations to do it. History is full of the people the victors tried to delete. Subscribe, and we'll keep bringing them back.